Welcome to Studebaker Rescue starter tune-up. So what we got a starter off of the Daytona hardtop, and I went ahead and got it disassembled. I've gotten it cleaned up. It was a little grungy inside, but got it cleaned up. Got the snout cleaned up. I've also replaced the bushing in the snout. This bushing is a really thin wall bushing. It came out really easy, but I had to make sure that I didn't deform it putting it in, so we made up a little tool. Basically the bushing slid down onto here, and that kept the, basically it keeps the bushing from collapsing inward, and drove right in. The Bendix drive, I mean, it's fine. It was working. The starter was working. I just wanted to go through, make sure, clean it up, make sure everything was good with it. The little screw that holds on the shaft, and there's also a little tiny woodruff key that goes in right there. I like to use blue Loctite on that screw. That screw was actually loose when I took it apart. The armature, make sure you don't lose the washers, thrust washers. There's a thrust washer here, and there's a thrust washer there. I cleaned it up with CRC electromotive, cleaned up the commutator, and went ahead and cut the grooves down a little more in it. I used a X-Acto saw for that. Let me get that and show it to you. It's actually worked real good. It's just a real fine, let's see if I can get it up there closer, real fine X-Acto thin, really thin saw, and that worked out real well for that. Very fine teeth on it. Let's see, what else? I do have a bushing here for the commutator end plate. Has a bushing in it, and I did get a new bushing for that. Eklund. It's an Eklund. Let's see, Eklund 4200, and I mean, it is exactly like the existing bushing, so I thought that was pretty cool. And made up a little tool for that. You can see that slides on there, and then basically you're just gonna hit it on this end and drive it in, so just protects the bushing. Can you do it without this? Yeah, but it's just less of a chance it goes in straight, less of a chance of collapsing it because it is so thin. If it was a thick bushing, for example, like this generator bushing, if it was thick like that, you wouldn't have to worry about it. But these little thin ones, I do worry about. This also has a center bushing, which goes on the armature right here, and I could not find a replacement of that bushing, but I did have a new old stock Delco Remy center support, so I'm going to use that. Got all the parts cleaned up, through bolts and everything. I still have to finish cleaning this up. once I get this old bushing out, then I'll finish cleaning this up. A little wire brushing on here and clean up the backside and put the bushing in, cover this up, and then shoot this with some paint. Let's see what else to show you. The brush assemblies, they're held in with pins, so that's a pretty nice setup. And the brushes, let's see if you can see those. Yeah, the brushes had some wear. They weren't terrible, but I did have a new set of brushes, a NOS set, and this is a Eklund from Napa R503 brush set. So you can see, yeah, they are longer. So we'll go ahead and replace those two. So just a little tune-up. The bushings weren't bad, but what you get into, if the bushings wear, then the armature ends up rubbing on the field coil, especially when it gets hot, and it runs slower, and so this just ensures that peak performance. That's not 12 volt, isn't that bad. 6-cylinder, that's really important. So I guess this is just a little introduction. We're gonna get this old bushing out of this commutator and cap, and we'll come back. We'll show you how to drive it in, and we'll go from there. Alright, we got the bushing out and got this cover cleaned up on the inside here. One thing I found with these bushings, the easiest way to get them out is cut inside. I like those. I've got some like little saw blades for the X-Acto knife, and just make a couple of cuts this way, and that'll release the press between the end and the bushing, and it'll come right out. So we've got our tool and we've got the bushing. I'm going to put just a little bit of looper plate in the hole and on the bushing, so to help it slide in, and I'll clean that out, because you don't want to have a bunch of grease running around in your storage. Alright, I did figure out that I don't want the weight resting on the, you can see it where the bushing's put together right there. So I put that in line with the holes, so at rest it'll be bearing either here or here. So let's cross our fingers, say a little prayer. The original bushing was set down just to the edge of that chamfer, so you could see the chamfer all the way. So that's where I'm going to put it back. we go. Alright, it's in. And there it is. So that was the last kind of work on this. Now it's time for reassembly. So let's get prepped up for that and we'll be back.